The Galactic Council had categorized humans as a Class C threat, barely worth monitoring. Too fragile, too emotional, and far too preoccupied with entertainment to pose any real danger to the established order of the cosmos. The Vril insectoid beings who headed the council had studied Earth's history and declared humans mostly harmless. A species that had yet to colonize beyond their own moon could hardly threaten civilizations spanning thousands of star systems. Captain James Reed of the United Earth Marine Corps knew differently. He had been selected as Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Council, a token position meant to placate the humans while keeping them safely marginalized. The Council's headquarters orbited Centauri Prime, a massive space station that housed representatives from over 300 species. Reed had spent 6 months there, enduring the subtle contempt of alien diplomats who viewed him as a primitive curiosity. Humans are an anomaly, Ambassador Krith of the Vril had once told him at a diplomatic function. The ambassador's mandibles clicked as he spoke through his translator. Your species achieved spaceflight before resolving your internal conflicts. Most civilizations mature emotionally before reaching for the stars. Reed had smiled politely. 6 months of smiling politely had worn his patience thin. Today was different. The Trescan Empire, a warlike species from the Outer Rim, had launched surprise attacks on 3 council outposts. The council chamber buzzed with panic as representatives debated their response. We must negotiate, insisted a delegate from the Fora Confederation, their bioluminescent skin flashing in agitation. The Trescans cannot sustain a prolonged conflict. The Trescans respect only strength, countered another alien. This one a gelatinous mass contained within an environmental suit. We must demonstrate military superiority immediately. Reed sat silently, watching the debate unfold. Humans had no vote in council matters. Their role was to observe and learn. Another way of saying, know your place. Ambassador Krith noticed Reed's silence. Captain Reed, your species has extensive experience with warfare, despite your technological limitations. What perspective can Earth offer on this situation? All eyes in the chamber turned to Reed. It was the first time his opinion had been solicited on any matter of consequence. The Trescans believe you fear them, Reed said simply, and based on this discussion, they're right. Gasps and translator glitches filled the chamber. Reed continued before he could be interrupted. On Earth, we have a saying, predators can smell fear. The Trescans are testing your resolve. Their attacks were calculated to cause panic, not maximize damage. And what would humans do in our position? Krith asked, his compound eyes gleaming with what Reed had learned to recognize as skepticism. Reed stood up. I can tell you what Earth Marines would do. We would hit them hard enough that they remember the pain for generations. Violence begets violence, Captain, said a Medusan representative, their crystalline form shimmering with disapproval. Surely your species has learned this after millennia of warfare. What we've learned, Reed replied, is that there are predators in the universe, and when facing predators, showing weakness is fatal. The council chamber fell silent. Reed could feel the collective discomfort of beings who had enjoyed peace for so long they'd forgotten its price. You speak of combat as if you understand it intimately, said Krith, his voice now curious rather than dismissive. Yet your species has not faced interstellar warfare. No, Reed agreed, but we've faced ourselves for thousands of years. Something in Reed's tone made even the most disinterested council members lean forward. Have you ever tasted death, Ambassador Krith? Reed asked. What an odd question. Death is not something one tastes, Krith replied. Humans do. Reed's eyes narrowed slightly. When I was deployed in the Amazon conflict, my unit was ambushed. I took shrapnel to my lung. As I lay there, blood filling my mouth, I tasted copper and salt. That's what death tastes like to humans. Copper and salt. The chamber was utterly silent now. Every Marine, every soldier who's been in combat knows that taste. And here's what makes humans different. We've tasted death, and we got back up anyway. Reed looked around the chamber, meeting alien gazes without flinching. The Trescans have never faced an enemy who gets back up. They're bullies who prey on fear. Show them there are worse things than death, and they'll back down. Ambassador Krith's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep thought. What would you suggest, practically speaking, Captain Reed? Send a small elite force to hit their primary military installation in Vorish. Not a full assault, a surgical strike that demonstrates capacity and will. Then open diplomatic channels. And if they refuse to negotiate, asked the Ford representative. Reed's smile was cold. Then you show them what total war looks like. The council debated long into the night. Reed returned to his quarters, expecting his input to be dismissed once the initial shock wore off. To his surprise, a delegation led by Ambassador Krith arrived at his door the next morning. The council has voted to implement your strategy, Captain, Krith said. Mandibles twitching in what Reed had learned was the Vral equivalent of respect, and we request Earth's assistance in planning the operation. Reed nodded. Earth will be honored to assist. As the delegation departed, Reed heard Krith mumble to an aide, update the threat assessment on humans, immediately. 3 weeks later, the Trescan Empire sued for peace after a devastating attack on their Voresh base by a joint council force, one that included 40 Earth Marines. The Galactic Council revised humanity's classification that same day. Humans were now a Class A potential threat. Reed considered it progress. The universe was a dangerous place, better to be feared than pitied. As he prepared to return to Earth, Ambassador Krith approached him one final time. We misunderstood your species, Captain, the Vral admitted. We saw your technological limitations, but failed to appreciate your psychological adaptations. A species that has tasted death, yet continues to advance, is formidable. Reed smiled, not politely this time. That's the thing about humans, Ambassador. We don't just survive, we remember. And sometimes remembering the taste of death is what keeps you alive.